Thank you for joining us for Long Island Pause Monologues 2. A special shout out to all the writers, performers, and participants in this special project. We would like to give a special thanks to Donna Woods Cruel for our awesome logo. Enjoy Long Island Pause Monologues 2.
How am I doing during this pandemic? Well, I'm fragile. Please handle me with care. I'm scared. I have fortunately been able to work from home, for which I am so grateful. I've been able to keep myself enclosed, like a gift in a box, with the lid shut tightly, only to be opened, and from where I exit when I have to. But I am fragile and need to be handled with care. I'm scared. I cannot listen to or watch the news on television. I have to be careful opening my browser. It's all doom and gloom. My ears cannot hear these things. The sadness, the pain people are going through, those numbers, I cannot listen. I'm fragile. I need to be handled with care. I'm scared, but I go out when I have to. The supermarket, the pharmacy, I can handle these outings briefly if the store isn't too crowded. And if I am someplace and it's taking too long, I start to get too nervous. Like the germs are swarming in, attacking. It's too much exposure. I'm scared. I'm fragile. I need to be handled with care. And in some ways, I want to go back to the office, be among people. It's been a lot of time on my own, but I'm scared. Yes, some good habits have come from my solitude. I've been doing a lot of walking outside instead of quickly in the gym, and I've been doing a lot of yoga. I have all these virtual friends now. I feel safe with them. We do yoga together and talk via the comments. They too are home, somewhere far away, but I feel so much less alone. It's a lot to be alone so much, but I feel safe with my virtual friends. They handle me with care. And I meditate at least once a week now, and dare I say, I have actually reached that state of peace. I have. That makes me smile. But yes, I think about going back to the office, and sometimes I yearn for it, but I have stopped into the office briefly to meet with a client, but then after a bit, it's too much. I need to get back home, into my box, like a perfectly wrapped gift, safe. I'm fragile. I need to be handled with care. And what I really need is a cut and color. I really need a pedicure, but oh, the horror. Any of those beauty treatments mean close contact. Can I handle it? Will I panic in the chair? I just don't know. I'm scared, I'm fragile. I need to be handled with care. And I need new glasses, and that means contact. The person will be close to my face. And how do I know what the frames will look like with a mask on? And how many people have touched the frames? And then they'll be on my face. Oh, the horror, the danger. No, I think I can do it. I have to. Oh, but should I get frames to match the mask? Oh, I guess I'll see what happens. I'm scared. I hope they can handle me with care. I thought I was getting more daring and less nervous. I always wear my mask, but now I go gloveless on occasion. And I don't freak out. I sanitize, of course, profusely. When I get home, as soon as I cross the threshold and sanitize my cell phone and alcohol, I wash my hands with soap. Lots and lots of antibacterial, sudsy soap. I feel secure. I'm in my box, my safe place. I need to be in my box. No, I'm not ready to rejoin society. I'm fragile. And I need to be handled with care. Please handle me with care. I'm scared. Hello. I'm sorry I'm late. It's so nice to see you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. 6 feet rule.
Well, thanks so much again for letting me come in today. I really need to go through these reports with you in person. And to be quite frank, I'm just a little bit tired of the whole video conferencing thing. I've never been a fan of talking to computers. Here are the reports. As always, on time. Well, not exactly on time this time since I was late coming in today, but here they are. Ever since we started working remotely from home 3 months ago, things have been so hectic. Oh, and by the way, thanks so much for having tech support call me to help get my computer up and running so that I could work from home. Even though they said my computer was a dinosaur, I want you to know that I did not take that personally. At first, I was really disappointed when the company said that I was non-essential. After being here for 11 years, I would have thought differently. However, I am just so grateful for you allowing me to work from home. And when they considered you to be essential, well, it must have been so difficult for you to come in every day. I've heard such horror stories of people being let go or laid off or furloughed because of the pandemic. Oh, and I received the email about us entering the next phase and that I will be returning to the office on a daily basis next month. Time flies. Well, that's the first report you're looking at. That is the quarterly report from the last 3 months working from home. Oh, please don't mind the dirt marks. That's a little hard to explain. Little Robbie, God bless him, he would not stay off my lap while I was working on the computer. He kept trying to grab the papers when I printed them out with his stubby, grubby little fingers. He kept trying to pound the keyboard as I was trying to type the numbers. He just turned 19 months, you know, and I cannot believe all the things he does. It's amazing. It's funny because Robert and I barely remember anything about Madeline when she was 19 months old. Of course, Madeline is 6 years old now, but for the life of me, I cannot remember half the things she did that I now notice Robbie doing. I asked Robert if he thought it was because Robbie's a boy and since Madeline's a girl, maybe girls are different. But he didn't know. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention. Robert suggested that I ask the daycare center if they could check their records for Madeline's milestones and such. But I didn't want to do that. Robbie's favorite word seems to be, "Excuse me." He says it about everything. I don't even think he knows what it means. He just says it all the time. "Excuse me." Robert and I laugh. We always answer, "You're excused." I think he sees that it makes us laugh, and so he just wants to say it more and more. I don't remember Madeline's favorite word. I'm sure she had one also. Robbie's just so adorable. Well, anyway, as you can see in the quarterly report, there was a slight drop in the numbers. I made a notation at the bottom that many of our partners have also been working from home, and that the drop in the numbers was unavoidable. So that at the end of the report, you can see that the number results still make sense. Okay, that's a monthly report for each of the last 3 months. There is also a month-by-month report of the last 6 months. I included a comparison between the last 6 months and the last 3 months with the same notation about the drop in the numbers due to the coronavirus. I've also included last year's monthly reports, and if you look closely, you will see that last year at this time, we weren't doing nearly as well as we're doing right now. And there was no coronavirus last year. The numbers speak for themselves, so we're actually in pretty good shape for this year. Just disregard the rip in the paper. It's a little hard to explain. Madeline was drawing, and I had the monthly report on the table where she was, and she accidentally ripped up her own drawing along with that part of the monthly report. But I repaired it. You can see the Scotch tape. I just don't understand why she would rip up her own drawing. She seems to get so frustrated so quickly. Robert and I sat down with her to discuss it, and she started to cry. She said she didn't think she was a good drawer. Can you imagine that? A 6-year-old so critical of herself. Well, I told her immediately that I loved her drawing and that she's a much better drawer than me. She just shook her little head with her little pigtails swinging back and forth. So I decided to have a draw-off contest with her. You know, like a friendly mother-daughter competition. So we made Robert the judge, and when we were finished, he of course picked her drawing. But you know, he didn't pick her drawing because he didn't want to hurt her feelings. He picked her drawing because it was actually better than mine, much better. She drew this adorable little puppy with these big rosy cheeks and these big green eyes and this tiny, tiny, adorable little brown nose. I drew a tree with leaves, and some clouds in the sky. She had these huge whiskers coming out of its cheeks. At first, Robert and I weren't sure whether it was a puppy or a kitten. So when we asked her, she answered so proudly, "It's a puppy! Can't you see the floppy ears?" Madeline is just so adorable. So Robert and I are thinking about getting a puppy. We've been married for 9 years, and we have always been so adamant about not having pets, not even a hamster. Who was going to be home to take care of it? That's the summary report. I created that as an additional report. I wanted to keep our shareholders satisfied, so I provided a report with a summary of all of our efforts. You'll be pleased to see that I accounted for not only last year's results, but also this year's results, as well as once again demonstrating our hard work and deep commitment to excellence. And I also included a template that I created that can be used for all future reports. Those wine stains. It's a little hard to explain. I showed Robert the report. I usually never talk work with him, but he was curious about what I was doing. You know, we never used to be able to talk after work, both of us being so tired. Well, we ended up in this really long conversation over several glasses of wine. And we ended up talking about when we first met and the dreams that we had. You know, Madeline and Robbie were always part of our plan. But time just goes by so fast. And it seems we just never noticed certain things. We've missed out on so much with the children, and yet there's still so much more to look forward to. Yeah, that's the last page of the report. That one's a little easier to explain. It's my letter of resignation. After all, who's going to stay home and take care of the puppy?
I'm sitting here today sorting through some old, basically functional stuff that somehow wound up clinging to me accidentally. That includes books. Here's an old Bradshaw's Handbook of Italy, 1862. A Baedeker, 1890. These books were my grandmother's. Somehow wound up here. They'll go on the pile of stuff I'm collecting for my students at Stony Brook. Students I won't actually be seeing face to face this term, just on a computer screen. A global accident. But today I'm thinking more personally. I'm wondering about the accidental nature of my life. Me, a guy who always thought of himself as basically rational. For instance, these things, these books, Stony Brook, my grandma, they're all somehow strangely interconnected. Here's how. My grandma came here from Sicily as a young woman, met a man, got married, had 6 children, raised them, got old, died. The 6 children got married, had 24 more children. On the day of my grandma's burial, the whole clan showed up, about 70 people in all. Me, I was late, got lost on my way to the cemetery. A very characterizing accident for me. By the time I got there, everybody was leaving. I mean leaving, going home. Because it was 15 degrees out, the cemetery was encased in ice. So I, stubborn, waited in the chapel. Not done yet. Sat 2 hours waiting for the gravediggers. Meanwhile, thinking about my grandma, a very nurturing woman who had her wits about her all her life until the last couple of days, holding on to all those people who came out of her, and then finally having to let go, close her eyes. And me, just one of them. So, when the gravediggers finally took the casket on the back of their pickup truck across the ice to that hole in the ground, with me slipping and sliding after them, I wasn't kidding myself that it would matter, particularly to my grandma, that it was me still there, waiting to see the thing completed. When one of the gravediggers, a gray-haired guy in a parka, looked up and said to me, "Your grandma? I'm sorry." I said, I didn't really know her very well. And he said, "Doesn't matter. Just think, when you were a baby, how many times this woman held you in her arms." That man has to be long dead now, but his words propelled me to Europe, to Sicily, to the town my grandma came from, to her people, to the house she was born in, all in a very unorganized way. That's what I mean by my accidental life. The times words from someone, a look from someone, a chance encounter with someone propelled me or impelled me out of myself and toward myself. After that cemetery day, I thought a lot about my grandma. Leaving her parents, settling into a bunk in steerage on her 16th birthday, coming here along with millions of other people who came here by plan, by instinct, by misunderstanding, however. I thought about it, studied it, wrote a novel about it, made a movie, made more movies, more novels, all pretty personal. People saw these things. Sometimes they invited me to speak. They listened. Sometimes at colleges they offered me jobs. "You have a doctorate?" "Yeah." "You want to know in what?" "It doesn't matter. Come in with us." At Stony Brook, the students take film and literature courses with me in the experience of the Italian immigrants. In their evaluations, they say they really like these classes because I'm passionate about what we discussed there. This surprises me. Passion is not rational, and I'm a basically rational guy. So what do they mean? Maybe it's this. when they ask me questions, I tell them what I remember as a child, spending part of every day with my grandma. The dough being rolled out on the kitchen table for pasta, the iceman coming to the door with a fresh block for the icebox, the laundry being spooled out on the clothesline from the kitchen window, the flames in the cook stove, the covered bathtub next to it, the bed the pasta was laid on to dry, the bed my mother was born in, the bed she slept in with her two sisters, all in one bed, until the day she married my father. My grandma making clothes for everybody on the treadle machine, my grandpa filling the kerosene stove that kept the place warm, the affectionate chatter around the dining room table among all those people every day. These sound like movie cliches, but they're not. They're memories, three-dimensional, that I can walk around in. It's different. And of course, they're memories without meaning until someone interprets them. That's me. I'm the mid-man. I have the two generations before me fixed vividly in my memory, and the two generations after me. I'm aware of this as I walk from building to building on the campus, past all these young folks, always hurrying, always talking on cell phones. I'm not young, but I still work. They give me extra room when they go flying past me on bicycles and skateboards. They hold doors for me. Well, they did. Now they see my face on their computer screens. We go where life pushes us. That's how my grandma wound up here. That's how 15 million people of Italian descent, including me, wound up here. Passion, they say they hear. You love your grandparents, your parents, your siblings, your cousins, your life. That's probably what they hear. And you respect what the people before you did. Life is not a frivolity. Wake up. Don't miss it. That's it. That's why I have things. Not a lot, just some. They're not here by accident. They're beautiful. They're old, but they still work.
I got fired. Yeah. First, they sent us all home when everything closed down months ago and told us that our jobs were secure. And then bam, out of the blue, I get a call. Due to the impact of the pandemic, my position had been terminated. Blew me away. I wondered, did I do something? I mean, was it just me? Turns out there were 5 of us total. After a good cry, I needed to talk to someone. I decided I wouldn't call my husband. I didn't want to ruin his day. That would wait until I saw him that evening. The next person I thought to call was my sister, but I knew exactly what she would tell me, and right she would be. And I just wasn't ready to hear it. Too new. Losing a job you need or love or both, you go through a variation of the 5 stages of grief. But for me, there could be no stage 1 denial. No. For me, it was more like a sense of utter shock and this feeling of failure. I mean, so many people have lost their jobs during these messed up times. I wasn't so special. But when your boss tells you your job is secure and offers additional help if needed. It kind of lulls you into a sense of security, false sense of security. Looking back, I feel embarrassed that I believed them, but still. And at first I thought I was the only one, but then slowly we reached out to each other, having formed the kind of friendships that you do, spending 40 plus hours a week together. We all thought we were the only ones. Anger. Yeah. The way it was done. The unfairness of who they kept and who they let go. The coldness and the nickel and diming of the payout of the PTO and the strings attached to any severance pay, among other things. Yeah, anger. Bargaining? No, that didn't quite fit for me here either. There was no one to bargain with. I mean, there was no way that we could be rehired if things bounced back. They were very clear about that. No, what I felt here was fear. Fear of not being able to pay my bills. Despite that additional $600 a week, which, had a short shelf life at this stage of the pandemic. Fear of ending up homeless. Fear of not being able to get another job at the age of 65. I was beginning to have mild panic attacks. Depression. No, not the bone-chilling, debilitating kind of depression. No, this was the kind that would sneak into your day at unexpected times, stop you in your tracks. For a while, depression and fear and anger would each visit me in waves. Acceptance. I knew what my lovely, enlightened sister would have reminded me. That I wasn't ready to hear it or accept it in the midst of this brand new shock. That there's really only one constant in life, and besides death. No, not taxes. Change. Change is a constant in this life. And we need to allow ourselves to be open to that change. The universe has thrown me this curveball. Totally not the only one I've had to deal with in my life. And now it's my job to accept it and find that new path. One that can get me through this. One that may be even better than anything I could imagine. I've come to realize that we really do make our own reality. So, one of my plans, at the encouragement of my friends, is to enroll in a memoir writing class. I'm much better with deadlines. Just to try to commit my stories to the page. It's just right. I've always felt I had a book in me, but there were always excuses. Well, I have no excuses now. Instead of throwing a wrench into my plans, maybe I can look at it this way. Maybe the universe has actually removed roadblocks to fulfillment. Change is inevitable. Having any control of our lives is an illusion. But having the control over the way we respond to those changes, that's all us. I have lived my life refusing to let anyone beat me. I will not be beaten, and this won't beat me. No, it's time for me to remember and focus on and be thankful for the things in my life that really matter. To love and be loved. To connect with nature and spirit. My health. Family, true friends, those things that are so important to me. I have a roof over my head, the love of a good man, food in my belly, and 2 cats who adore me. After all is said and done, I am rich. And I am lucky.
Okay, there we go. Okay. Hi. Welcome to Adventure Log, day number... This was a lot easier when Cuomo was giving his daily briefings. I kind of miss those, to be honest. My best guess would be day 115. Does that sound right? Yeah, it's taken me 115 days to start thinking about documenting any of this. Well, no, that's not true. I've thought about documenting this. I've definitely had the time to think about doing something about this. I've just not done it before. So, this is day 115. Adventure log number 1, State Park, Purple Trail, 10 miles start to finish. You hear that past self? You just did 10 miles for fun today on a Tuesday. You know, I've never really actually said that out loud before. I'm not really an outdoorsy person, more of a nature person. I like flowers and I like animals. But I started this thing working at home, sitting in front of a desk for 8 hours straight, then logging on with my friends for another 2, and basically my brain started seeping out of my ears. But then they had those memes come out, like the nature isn't closed, the outside isn't closed. So one day I decided after work today, I'm gonna go to the woods. And the woods being the bike path that's near my house. Eventually I learned that bike path was actually connected to like 400 something acres of trails. So I spent the first 2 weeks hopelessly getting lost, trying to make my way back to my house before I had to piss my pants. That was March, and then the monotony set in, and the hopelessness came back, and I started to hate my house. Like I couldn't even escape to go to the supermarket without scrubbing up like a surgeon, and nobody had masks yet, and I felt the anxiety just settle into my bones. And it wasn't just my anxiety, it was like this shared world anxiety, and it was like a mist in the air. It was tangible, it was heavy, and the virus kept getting closer and closer every day. It seemed like friends of friends were getting sick, and then they were dying, and then people I knew, and then Kara. Oh my God, I guess it's been 2 months since Kara. 6 feet apart. 6 feet apart was still new back then. And I know it's got this dark association to it, but like, it just kept getting stuck in my head, like 6 feet, 6 feet, 6 feet. Further, I can go 6 feet deeper. I can walk through 6 feet of thorns. I can walk through 6 feet of anything. And so I did. Eventually, I learned the trails outside my house. And that was just in time for spring to start asserting itself. Oh, low battery, great. As I pushed myself further and further, the woods bloomed, you know, the vines and the forest, especially the whole world. It felt like my woods started looking like Jurassic Park, and you know those the fern, weird little fiddlehead things, and they look like baby dinosaurs, all like green and scaly and curled up. And as those lined the trail, I was able to push myself further and further, and my world got bigger and wider greener than I could ever imagine. The wildlife woke up. I couldn't walk 2 feet without stepping on a chipmunk. And the world was still scary, but, you know, 1 mile further into the woods, and it meant 15 minutes that I'm not like sitting on my ass in front of my computer. So the more I walked, the easier I slept. And so I went further. It was 6 feet further, and then 6 miles further, and then 8, and then 10. Sometimes I cried out there, sometimes I wanted to scream, but most of the time I enjoyed the view. I found 2 skeletons, animal skeletons. I added 16 of those little painted rocks to the shrines that the Girl Scouts made. And my fitness app told me that I logged almost 200 miles in May alone. There's still a lot of ground to cover. You know, there's miles to go before I sleep, right? And you know, maybe one day there will be Yellowstone and the Grand Canyon. Probably not Everest, but who knows, you know. We'll just take it 6 feet at a time.
I remember walking into the store for the first time and saw the empty shelves. The empty toilet paper shelves. Empty. Completely empty. I couldn't believe my eyes. My husband and I didn't need toilet paper yet. We had enough toilet paper to cover our behinds. But to see empty toilet paper shelves in the United States seemed un-American. I walk around the store and see empty shelves in the meat aisle as well. I see a friend stumbling in the soup section. Is this the United States? With empty shelves and a blizzard not even in the forecast. She agreed. The toilet paper journey was only beginning. CVS, Target, Stop and Shop, King Cullen, Rite Aid, no place had toilet paper. If a store had it, 7-Eleven? Yes! Aldi's? Woohoo! Had it. It would be posted on Facebook, as if it were the gold rush all over again. We were living in a real-life scavenger hunt and would stop at nothing. Then, one day my husband came home with a big announcement and a 8-pack right in his hand. I found toilet paper! Yay! But then he said, "It's 1-ply, like you like." What? 1-ply? I thought this man knew me. 1-ply toilet paper was what you used at truck stops, Penn Station, at schools or church bathrooms. As if that statement were harsh enough, my husband added, "I could have gotten you 2-ply. Oh, my heart. We hadn't used 1-ply since we had to with members of our family who would easily plug up the toilet, and we had to resort to desperate measures, like 1-ply. And now 1-ply was our pot of gold. I kept searching, gleaming, hoping Target, Stop and Shop, any place would reward my search. Alas, the empty toilet paper shelves would laugh at my face. So cruel. Then, the other day, after 2 months of searching, I went to Target earlier in the day with a hope in my heart. I saw people exiting Target with paper towels. Oh no, not a good sign. There must not be any good toilet paper. Courage. I took a deep breath, tightened my face mask, slapped on hand sanitizer, gripped my cart, and bravely walked towards the toilet paper shelves. I turned the corner and there they were. huge packs of 18 mega rolls of Up and Up Soft and Strong 2-ply. Did I hear a choir of angels? Did my heart skip a beat? Did my feet get jiggy with it? Yes, I say. Yes. I grabbed my 1 per customer that I was allowed and gently placed it in my quivering cart. Did I shop for a few more items at Target? I may have. I was in a joy fog. Toilet paper, anesthesia. That night, as the sun set, I grabbed my pack of 18 mega rolls and made a vow. As God is my witness, I will never use 1-ply again. And then added, well, maybe at Penn Station.
Damn it! It was just here. This is so frustrating. I'll be right with you. I had it just recently. I know I did. Forget it. Has this been happening to you since the coronavirus? Everything has been affected. All my senses have been affected. Touching, hearing, smelling, tasting, everything has been affected. For instance, my hearing. It's become so much more acute. Yeah, really. Since there are fewer cars on the road, sounds we never heard before, I can now hear. I can tell the difference between a UPS truck and a FedEx truck when it's still a block and a half away. That's right. And tasting? I don't know. Everything seems to taste like chocolate. Don't ask me why, it just does. And smell. My smelling sense has become so much more acute. I can now smell myself. Yeah. I would go down to the kitchen to get something, and when I came back, I would say, "What's that funky odor?" That was my cue. Time to shower. Tomorrow. I'm worried. I'm really, really worried about what's happening to all my senses, my sense of balance, my sense of well-being. Worst of all, I think I lost my sense of humor. Yeah, that's right. And that's very important to me. It's important because that's a part of who I am. People would say, "Oh, Bob, you're so funny. You're so quick, yeah, see? That's what happens. That's what happens. You know what? Before I lost my sense of humor, I would have come back with that sense and with that last statement, and I would have said, "Witted? Well, that's only half right." Get it, half-witted. I'm in real trouble now. It's terrible. Anyway, you don't believe me. I know you don't believe me. So let me give you an example. I'll tell you a joke. Here we go. I was walking down Lexington Avenue the other day, and a man came up to me and he said, "Do you know how to get to Carnegie Hall?" And I said, "Sure. Go west on 24th Street, and when you get to 7th Avenue, make a right." Not funny, right? Yeah, that's what I thought. You think that's just a fluke? No. I'll tell you another one. Knock, knock. Who's there? I am. I am who? Bob Kaplan. I'm in real trouble here. This is terrible if I've lost my sense of humor. Anyway, wait a second. Wait a second. Maybe it's in my sock drawer. I found it! Here it is! Yay!
Okay. So you might be wondering, why am I sitting in my closet crying? Well, I saw a spider. I was sitting on the couch binging old seasons of Scandal because there's nothing left to do, and I go to grab the remote to change the volume when I see this giant, black, hairy-looking fucker coming crawling out of the cushions. So naturally, I'm freaking out. I can already feel my whole body start itching like there's 100 spiders crawling all over me. And before any of you assholes start telling me, "Oh my god, it's just a spider." No! It is not just a spider. Well, I mean it is, but that's not the point. spiders just freak me out. Like, really freak me out. I have nearly crashed my cars more times than I can count because there was a spider on the windshield and I started having a panic attack. So I see this spider on my couch and I'm like, shit, I have to kill this thing. I immediately jump off the couch and start tearing apart my apartment for something hard and flat because I am not giving this little jerk a chance. And I dig up this old candle someone gave me for Christmas who knows how many years ago. And when I get back, it's gone. I start tearing apart the couch. I look under the rugs, but nope, it's just gone, lurking somewhere I can't find it, and I want to die! I'm so done with this whole fucking year. Like, it's bad enough that I can't see my friends and that my job is still shut down because we're not considered an essential business. But now I'm stuck in my apartment losing my mind because a fucking spider is in here and I don't know what the fuck to do. I am so tired of being alone. All I want right now is someone here to hold me. Someone to tell me that I'm gonna be okay and that we're gonna take care of this. God, I just wish I didn't have to be alone. You know what? Maybe I'll be alright on my own.
It was the last week of March. The worst part is that I kind of predicted it. My dad said that we would all know someone, and somehow I knew who it would be. Before we even knew the extent of what coronavirus could do to us, but back then, that's when the symptoms started. Aiden started having a sore throat at work early in the week. He was tired, he had chills. The symptoms sounded like kind of COVID, but not really. Maybe? Was my head playing tricks on me? I never told anyone about the dream I had back in 2011. About how Aiden was killed, and ever since then I'd always imagined I'd lose him before his time. The fact that I thought he'd probably end up with the coronavirus kind of led that narrative along, but I had to be crazy. My mind wanted me to believe that, right? Aiden ended up being tested at the end of the week. He sat in his car outside of his local urgent care for hours on end while I worked at home and did everything I could to put on a brave face. However, you're supposed to convey a brave face through text messages. No one ever prepared me for that. There's no course on that. He finally got the test. Finally had someone stick that cotton swab up his nose while he told the fine folks at the urgent care about his asthma. And then we waited. Aiden got tired of waiting, of us all asking what the results were. He just waited, and the waiting dragged. I wanted to ask, but he got so tired of people asking, of saying, "I'm hanging in" every day. I was in the bathtub on April 3rd when I saw the text. I tested positive. And I felt my whole body freeze as my nightmare from 9 years earlier flashed through my mind. I couldn't even answer the message right away. I had to keep to myself how scared I was in that moment, how yet another unimaginable event in both of our lives was staring me in the face, and I would have to go ahead and do what I always do. Pick myself up out of the bathtub, dry myself off, and just handle it. I sent a text to my boyfriend because I didn't know what else to do. My brain was a blur and was working overtime to keep tears from falling. I didn't want to handle it just yet. It was the one day that he wasn't awake before I was, and I can even remember typing as my hands shook and my heart raced into what was surely panic attack levels. Babe, call me as soon as you get up. Aiden hasn't. Still not knowing what to do with myself as my efforts to get out of the tub were futile at best, I called my church. Girl needs a little faith, right? And that's when I lost it. I'm a big crier, I really am, but I put far too much effort into not showing that part of me. When the church secretary asked why I was calling, I couldn't even hear myself think as the words, "My best friend has coronavirus and sick list," came out of my mouth through the sobs I was trying so desperately not to succumb to. I had to be brave. The secretary sounded like she was about to cry herself, sounding almost motherly, apologetic. "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. We will pray for him." I kept apologizing too, for showing too much of myself, like I just embarrassed myself. Apparently I was exasperated to find that wasn't enough comfort for me just yet. So I texted a few friends that were mutual friends of ours. It wasn't mine to tell just yet. That part was up to Aiden. Aiden battled COVID symptoms until May. There were nights he didn't sleep at all or didn't get more than 2 or 3 hours. The cough kept him awake all night. The fever spiked and then came down again. The food was useless. He couldn't taste it. The cliche of being so tired but not being able to sleep was never more relevant. He had to stay completely isolated. Frankly, we probably all should have been completely isolated, but the toll that complete one-room isolation takes on a person like Aiden, a person who talks to people and converses freely, is enough to make that type of person irrevocably depressed. But then there were the days when the shortness of breath came. The doctors didn't do anything except advise Aiden by a stupid telehealth appointment to take nebulizer treatments and use his asthma inhaler, like that was somehow going to help. Those were the days I barely slept too. I kept it inside. I kept telling Aiden that I was here when he needed me. I dropped a few things off outside of his house and longingly stared at the front door, but I couldn't bear seeing him face to face. My boyfriend texted him every day, sometimes more than I did. Sometimes that was easier. It felt like a stream of anxiety that had no end. Like a river of suppressed feeling and brave faces that would eventually run out, but I had to build a dam to keep the river from overflowing into my life. With the nightmare from 2011 resurfacing and my worst fears laughing at me from a place in my brain I told it to keep a lid on it, it was powerless and powerful, all at the same time. My paranoia grew. I was afraid to set foot in the single store, not wanting to spread the virus, not knowing if I carried it. When it's someone you know and not just someone you hear about on the nightly edition of News 12, it changes you. You see the coronavirus in everything, the way that religious fanatics see Jesus in their toast. But then I learned about the small but actually larger than you might think faction of our society that had the audacity to believe that the coronavirus pandemic is a hoax. The Sadowski patriots and the folks in Michigan who stormed the State House with rifles demanding rights and freedoms. Paranoia-fueled rage. And the first day that I went with my mom to my local gourmet market, my whole body shook. I awaited the day that I could call my church and speak to the secretary to let her know that Aiden was okay. That we can take him off the list of people who needed extra prayers. And I missed him. The longest we'd ever gone without seeing each other was about 3.5 months. And that was when I lived out of state. Missing him hurt my whole body and kept me up at night. It made me count the days and watch the hours and sit by the phone wanting to keep in touch, but also keeping distance in order not to be a bother. When you felt all of those emotions you try to keep inside, when you think it's only going to be the folks on the news, when you wake up in the morning and you wonder if your best friend will make it through the day, or when you are afraid to bother him because so many people are asking about how he's feeling, when his boss doesn't believe he's for real, when you feel yourself being stripped of your power because all you can do is stay home, when FaceTime isn't enough, when the cliche of being so close but so far comes true, when you see folks without masks and the life of one of the most important people in your life flashes before your eyes. Then come back to me and tell me what a hoax it is. But you won't, because then it won't be about you. Then you'll have to face the facts. It's not about you.
This is a very special day. For the first time in 4 months, my husband and I are going out to dinner together. Every year we pick someplace nice to celebrate the anniversary of our first date, and I really didn't think we were going to make it this year, what with COVID and all. So I really want to look my best. What do you think? Does this bring out the color in my eyes? Oh, I don't know. I think it might be a little too Grey's Anatomy for me. Besides, I don't think I have a dress this particular shade of hospital blue. Oh, now this is cute and practical. White goes with anything. And if we don't have enough money to pay the bill, I can always offer to drywall the kitchen. No, this calls for something fancy. Can you see me sitting at the table in this? I look like I should be robbing a stagecoach. Oh, I don't know. It might work if we go to the Golden Corral. You know, it's funny. When I think of all the money I spent on CoverGirl, and now this is the natural look. Oh, and putting one of these on and taking them off is almost the same thing. The other day, I got one of these straps snagged on the frame of my eyeglasses. Oh, I caught them before they smashed to the ground, but that would have been really good. Masked and blind. I know what you're thinking. Who is this vain, superficial bitch? All she cares about is her pretty face, and because of this pandemic, she has to walk through town like she's headed to the OR to remove somebody's gallbladder. I admit it. I have my moments of vanity. But what woman outside of a sheik's harem wants to walk around with her face covered? But you know what? Deep down, I wouldn't be caught dead without wearing my mask outside. And I wouldn't want anyone to be caught in a hospital because I wasn't wearing one either. Oh, at first I really didn't want to wear it. The only people who ever looked good in a mask were the Lone Ranger and the Phantom of the Opera. Oh, and Zorro. Ooh, he really knew how to work it. But then I got to thinking, and I realized wearing a mask is kind of like going to a nude beach. Yeah, I know that sounds weird, but here's the deal. At first you're thinking, what am I doing? I feel so strange, and I look so awkward. Do I really want people to see me like this? But once you look around and you notice that everybody else is just as naked and exposed as you are, it suddenly seems perfectly normal. like a part of life. Not one that I especially wanted, but one that is necessary, at least for now. On the bright side, some people actually look better with a mask on. Who knows? This time next year, there might be a vaccine. Better yet, there might be a new president. The whole world could be completely different and we won't have to wear a mask anymore. But for now, my mask is like my American Express card. I won't leave home without it. So, which one should I wear tonight? Oh, how did I miss you? Oh, wow, this is a slinky little number. What do you think? Good choice? Oh, and I have a string of pearls that would look perfect with this. Oh, and a little black dress that's sure to spark my husband, and matching earrings, and
I love you. I haven't even met you yet, but I love you. Can't wait to meet you. Oh God. I'm counting down the days until we're together at last. I spent so much time as a young girl wondering what you'd be like, and I know you're not going to disappoint. I sat in bed and I dreamed about all the things I teach you. And you me. What color hair will you have? Will you have daddy's eyes or mine? Oh, I hope you have those bouncy curls I had as a kid. I could bounce with the best of them on that playground. Do you have to warn you, kiddo? The world is a pretty crazy place right now. You have this scary virus that's really changed things. We're supposed to stay inside a lot and so much stuff is closed. We wear masks when we go out so you can't even see people smiling. Crazy, right? The virus is supposed to be worse in older people. I'm so worried about your grandparents, kiddo. I don't know what I'd do if anything happened to them. You just have to meet your grandpa. He likes to do magic tricks. He'll pull a coin out from behind your ear and you won't even know how it got there. And your grandma has a way with animals. It's like she talks to them. I hope they find a cure sooner rather than later. I want you to live in a world like the one I grew up in. I want you to go to the movies every weekend. I want you to fall in love. I want you to go to the mall with your friends and listen to music that you love and I think is awful. Please, God, please let this baby grow up healthy and hang a graduation tassel from the car mirror instead of a surgical mask. There is something in this world that makes me so glad to be bringing you into it. And that's the superheroes. Oh, you'll learn all about Superman and Batman soon enough, kiddo, but we have real life superheroes. There are so many doctors and nurses helping people. We have scientists searching day and night for a cure. There's so many farmers and fishermen and grocery store people making sure everyone gets fed. We even have people marching through the streets demanding that everyone be treated fairly. That's something else I hope for you. I hope you have so many friends who may look different than you or talk different than you. I hope you know people who pray in different ways than you. I hope you and your friends can love whoever you fall in love with. Give people a chance. no matter what they look like or where they come from. I wasn't always so great with that. And your great-grandfather? Wow. But I know you can be like 1,000,000 times better than that. It's really time little babies like you learn more about love than hate. This is some pretty heavy stuff I'm laying on you, kiddo. But I know you'll be just fine. The world will be just fine. I know it.
My name's Butterfly. Well, I mean, that's not my name. I mean, it's not the name on my birth certificate, but that's what everybody calls me, and I like it. I work in a grocery store. I'm a cashier. When we heard about the coronavirus, a lot of people stopped going to work. You know, that's when they started calling us essential workers. You know, and I had never heard that word before. I mean, not about me. I mean, here I was working the cash register, and suddenly I was more essential than, well, all sorts of people. A lot of people stayed home. I woke up and went to work, and I was proud of it. Why shouldn't I be? But supermarkets suddenly changed too. I mean, people were afraid to shop. It's like there was a serial killer running around the store, and in a way, there was. I mean, we all realized that the virus could be anywhere, everywhere in the store. You know, someone could come in breathing the virus like a dragon. That word, essential, was said a lot. We were important to the world. Well, we weren't. The food was important. The food was what was essential. You see, nobody gave us any sanitizer or mask or gloves in the beginning. You know, some people were getting them. We saw people on TV, but the store didn't give us any of that at the start. And we were on the front lines of what war? I mean, what kind of war is fought in a grocery store without weapons? You know, I bought my own sanitizer and gloves and mask. I realized that I'm responsible for myself. It would have been nice if the store gave them to me at work, but if you don't take care of me, it doesn't do me any good to blame you. So I took care of it. You know, I took care of myself. I was proud to go to work. I was proud that suddenly I was essential. You know, minimum wage maybe. But I mattered, and that was nice, even if I didn't always feel that way. And I felt a little sick. But nothing big, you know, just a headache, sore throat. I refused to miss a day of work. People needed me. And besides, I needed the money. I wasn't going to let my customers down. I wasn't going to let my coworkers down. I wasn't going to let myself down. The people in the store, those were my customers, you know? I knew their name, and they knew mine. Butterfly, how are you? You're Butterfly? Yes, I am. You know, I knew their names too. A lot of people didn't say anything, but enough did. I always smiled. I was happy to talk with people. I like people. I always have. It's, I guess it's my upbringing. I'm a people person. Everybody, well, mostly everybody shows up at the supermarket at some point. And besides, I couldn't just stay homesick. That wouldn't do anybody any good. I'd get so bored, you know? I didn't feel better, but I didn't feel that much worse. You know, and even if I felt sick, I went to work. That was my duty. And it wasn't a big deal. You know, I worked pretty long hours. I was tired. I had a headache, that's all. But then one day at work, it really hit me. I went straight from work to Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. I fought the virus, and 2 weeks later, I died. After almost 23 years. So many days and nights, dreams and fears. I was done. I wasn't going back to the store. Essential my ass. They wrote my real name on the death certificate, but I was still Butterfly to my customers. You know, I didn't just fly away. Some of them asked for me. Where's Butterfly? But there was no good answer. And there was no real answer at all. I went to the hospital and I died. And for what? I died for what? For what? So you could get your Cocoa Puffs or your milk and your eggs? Look, I'm not saying that you did anything wrong. I'm not saying that you did anything at all. I don't blame the customers. Do I blame the company? I don't even blame the company. Do I blame the virus? I mean, you can't blame a virus. When I started to feel sick, I went in to do my job. They told me I was essential, and I believed it. I'm not the only essential worker. I know that. There's lots of other essential workers, too. Not just in supermarkets and hospitals. Workers at the meatpacking plants were as essential as I was, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 more and more died there. So what happened? Companies shut some of them down. And the government came up with suggestions. You know, these meatpacking plants didn't have to do anything. It was optional. You know, that's another word. It doesn't go great with essential. And after companies shut the meatpacking plants down, executives from the packing companies met with government officials. Then the government officials said the plants had to open. The federal government didn't suggest that the workers go back to work. The government forced the plants to open. The companies had no choice. They were just doing what they were told to do. If something happened, it wouldn't be their fault. The workers there were essential. They had to go back to work or they'd lose their unemployment. So they were essential? I mean, essential for who? If we're essential, I mean, at least treat us like we are, pay us like we are, and protect us like we are. If something is essential, you take care of it. I mean, so who's taking care of us? Some people think about what's in things for themselves. Some people learn to live to help others. Sometimes we ignore our own best interest. When I got sick, I told myself I'd be fine. The problem would go away. If I stayed home and went to the hospital sooner, would I have been all right? I don't know. But I do know that I did go to a hospital where other essential workers tried to save my life. And I do know that they didn't always have enough masks or gloves. Not enough essential tools to protect them. Some doctors, nurses, and other people working in the hospitals died. And they were essential too. So tell me, when did it become a bad thing to be essential? You know, maybe we just have to look at the things that are essential to take care of each other. Not just the people as essential to get what we want. My brothers and sisters at the meatpacking plants, what's essential about them? So the rest of the country can have meat on their tables, so we can all have steak or beef or a hot dog when we want one? So we can maintain a supply chain. A lot of these plants are the biggest employer in their town. So tell me, if some of us are dead, then who's essential now? When they started doing testing at the meatpacking plants, they came up with some pretty strange questions. They handed out a questionnaire to the workers at a meatpacking plant in this place called Weld County. The local health department helped come up with a questionnaire to figure out whether to test employees for coronavirus. You know, just a few simple questions. Do you have a household member who has had a fever or respiratory problems or been told they have COVID-19? Then they asked the same questions about the people on the assembly line and the people they ate lunch with. But here's the twist. If you say yes to this, you don't qualify for a test. In other words, if it looks like you might have COVID-19, they won't test you. Quote, if the person answers yes to any of the above screening questions, they are not eligible to be tested. I mean, who came up with this crazy thing? 8 employees were dead at that plant at the last look, and that's just at last look. Then there was a nurse who wasn't given an N95 mask at the start of her shift, and she jumped in to try and help a patient, and to try to help her coworkers. She died 2 weeks later. Did she contract COVID-19 that day? I mean, there's no proof, but what do you think? What if that was you, or your brother, or your sister, or your mother, or father? You know, they died because of a mask, or a glove, or hand sanitizer. These things cost almost nothing. They're pennies. Mask, gloves, and hand sanitizer. Those are essential. You know how you know they're essential? Because if you don't have them, you can die. Maybe not you. But the fact is, you can't call someone essential without treating them like that. Or you shouldn't. When you say someone is essential, that doesn't mean that they have to go to work. It means that we have the responsibility to help take care of them. You know, in my case, I don't want you to think that when I died, that was the end. I got my final paycheck for $20.64. Now, what's a life worth? It wasn't my store, but they were my customers, and I'd like to think they miss me up here. I miss them, I can tell you that. Everyone was right about one thing. I was essential. I am essential. And not just because I ran a cash register at a store.